CA, a longtime Conservative, wrote in a column asking the government to remove Schedule 6 from Bill 229, and I quote, "I greatly admired the leadership of Bill Davis and Brian Mulroney for how they balanced environmental stewardship with fiscal responsibility. It saddens me that the party would turn away from that." Former Progressive Conservative Cabinet Minister David Crombie wrote in his resignation letter, "This is not policy and institutional reform. This is high-level bombing. It needs to be resisted." So, Speaker, it's not just AMO, it's not just the big city mayors, it's not just the OFA, it's not just community groups and environmental NGOs calling on the government to stop attacking conservation authorities. It's Conservative politicians telling the Premier to stop this fiscally irresponsible attack on protecting us from flooding. So will the Premier commit today to listening to the people and removing Schedule 6 from Bill 229?
Thank you very much. Recognize the Government House Leader.
Again, thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad the member referenced all of the accomplishments of Conservative governments in protecting the environment across the province of Ontario. He's quite correct. The Ministry of Environment was created by a progressive Conservative government. He is quite correct. Conservation authorities were creatures of a progressive Conservative government. He's quite correct. It was a progressive Conservative government under former Premiers Harris and Eves that announced the elimination of coal-fired plants in the province of Ontario. It was a Conservative government that invested in our nuclear capacity, which allowed us to get rid of coal-fired power, Mr. Speaker. And it is a Conservative government that once again will lead the way in protecting the environment across the province of Ontario, Mr. Speaker. That member can count on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the member for Guelph for a supplementary question.
Speaker, I would say this member is quite correct that the government is throwing that legacy away. Over the course of this pandemic, they've gutted the environmental assessment process, they've gutted the Endangered Species Act, and now they're gutting the ability to conservation authorities to protect us from flooding. To put that into perspective, the province contributes 8% of CA budgets. They only paid $7.4 million in flood mitigation prior to 2019, and then in 2019 they even cut that meager amount in half. We know that flooding costs are going to triple over the next decade. So, Speaker, will the government listen to AMO, the big city mayors, Greenbelt Council, conservation authorities, Conservative politicians, community organizations, environmental NGOs, all calling for them to stop this reckless attack on CAs? Can they explain to us who actually supports what they're doing?
Thank you. I return back to the Government House Leader for a response.
Thank you, Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, it is exactly that reason why we are making these changes right now. The member has highlighted on a number of occasions the importance of conservation authorities focusing on flood abatement, and that's what this does. Building on the Made in Ontario Environment Plan, we understand how important it is. That is why the conservation authorities have the authority now under this legislation to issue stop work orders. That is why conservation authorities will have the right to appeals under certain parts of the Planning Act, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, the important work of conservation authorities will continue. We expect that, but as the member said, we need to focus on flood mitigation. That's what our conservations need to continue to do. They need to do it better, Speaker, and these amendments will help them do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The member from Aurora, Oak Ridges.